today on our show. We're so excited.
Hi.
How
Yes,
are
I'm
you?
so excited as well. I am always just happy to be back with you guys. I feel like it's just such a fun time to, have this like educational moment, but to also just catch up with lovely people like
Thank
y'all.
you. So February is
Of
National Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. This is an issue that impacts everyone, not just teens, but their parents, teachers, friends, and communities as well. Today we are joined by Daya's Director of Training and Prevention, Tishya Bedi. During today's show, we will raise Houston's awareness about teen dating violence and promote safe, healthy relationships, right?
Yes.
So you have this new role, right? So
Yeah.
is it just what happened with the beginning of this year?
So we've actually been discussing this for a few months now,
Yeah.
and really strategically planning as to how we can best support Houston, the Houston community.
Right.
And so we figured out that yes, we need to do outreach, but we also need to get into like the nitty-gritty of it all, like discuss with the community itself. Listen to the community
Yeah.
because oftentimes what we like to do is like us as people is like
Yeah.
go into somewhere where we know that there is an issue
Yes.
and say, hey, there's a problem here.
Yeah.
But when you go into the community and rather listen first
Yeah.
and see what problems are there,
Yeah.
and then you sort of figure out how to combat those
Yeah.
problems, you're able to create a much more like sustainable solution for them. So that's what we were kind of doing for the last few months, is like figuring out like
Yeah.
what do teens need?
Yes,
What do
absolutely.
young adults need?
Yeah.
What do elderly people need? And
Yes.
so figuring out all of that. So officially the roles began
That's
this
amazing.
January.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, what better person than you? You're so easy to talk to, and and always have that beautiful smile. So
Thank you.
good
Thank
luck
you.
with that new role.
Thank you so much.
So what is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month?
So, it's pretty, it's
Yeah.
in the title itself, right?
Right.
It's Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. So every February, people all around the nation and right now maybe all around the world come together, whether old or young, and really bring awareness and bring in advocacy to the issue of teen dating violence.
Okay.
I think us as people, we think that, this type of violence doesn't really exist in like younger folks.
Yeah.
That this is a really big issue maybe in like married couples,
Exactly, yes.
but it starts at that age. And, um, this is like such a wonderful month for us because we really think that prevention is far better than intervention, although we support both.
Point. Yes.
But, the CDC even said that just in the same way that healthy relationships benefit the growth of young adults, it just in the same way, unhealthy, abusive relationships really are a detriment to young adults. And
Yes.
it carries such a long-term implication on these like young kids who are
Yeah,
so,
and the relations that they're gonna have for the rest of their
Yeah.
life.
because I think like teenagers were like, I remember I was so impressionable, like
Yeah.
anything I would hear and see, I'd be like,
I believe it.
like, so
Yeah.
now there's so many more complications as
And
like
then and teenage, you're still trying to figure out who you are. You have so much self doubt. At the same time, you're learning, like your personality and stuff. So imagine, like in that, to deal with violence, right, from
Yeah.
another person that you think is your idol, or
Absolutely.
So
And
yeah.
like I feel like there, as you just said, there's this newfound independence also
Yeah.
that teenagers are trying to navigate.
Yes.
And it's really scary, especially when you feel like you don't oftentimes, we'll get
Yeah.
into that later,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
When you don't feel like you have that support system. So to navigate all of that, plus this like abusive relationship, I mean, adults sometimes crack under that pressure. So I can't
Right.
imagine, what teenagers feel
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And
So many people think domestic violence is, like you said, impacting only adults. So how many teens experience this dating violence?
Way too many, I will say.
is it?
But according to the CDC, I think every year 1.5 million high school students
That's
fall
high.
victim
That's a
to
high number.
abuse from a partner. And young women between the age of 16 to 24 will face abuse at three times more than what like average adults will face oftentimes.
Oh.
And one other thing that I really, and I wrote this down because
Yeah.
numbers are not my thing. But while 80% of teenagers said that, that any form of abuse is really bad and that they have experienced that form of abuse, only 33% of those 80% actually came forward and said that I have faced some
Some,
some form of
yeah.
abuse in my life. And I know we use the term abuse, but I also will use the term
Yeah.
intimate partner
Yeah.
violence, side by side, because that is officially what we consider as, the violence. But yeah,
But
62% of young kids also said that they know somebody who has experienced some.
62%.
yeah.
Wow.
But do you
Yeah.
think the reason is because they cannot differentiate what abuse or what it is? Because many times, it is we take it as when we are young. Also, we've been in relationships, and we take it as love,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
right?
he's being possessive or,
So even if he's being
Absolutely.
possessive, it's like because he loves
yeah,
me,
yeah.
because he cares for me. So
Yeah.
is that one of the main reasons? Because we, as teenagers, we don't know, like we don't even know how to differentiate love or and abuse, right?
Absolutely. And I think the same goes for adults too. Like, uh, what we haven't been taught, we don't really know. And if we depend on like really unreliable sources, like watching a movie where like the boyfriend is jealous, or watching
Yes.
a teenage drama show where like possessiveness is like quote unquote
Yeah.
hot.
Yes.
You're learning from these things that aren't reliable. And so yes, like not knowing the difference or how to differentiate is huge. But then you also have this like mass media perspective of like people shoving these things down these young kids' throats, basically saying that like, oh yeah, these unhealthy like relationship things that like that we're depicting in our show are actually like really amazing.
Yeah,
And
they glorify it and make it normal.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And
because like I want to share this because when I was 15, I was in a relationship, and now when I think back, I had a very possessive boyfriend, and I didn't realize that. I was in that relationship for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and he was my first boyfriend, and it started off very casual, very like fun, hanging out with the whole group of friends, going for movies and stuff. And then slowly it was like, no, you can't go out. Um, you know, you can't go out with anyone. And if I went out with anyone, I could not speak to any boys.
wow.
Wasn't allowed to see. I mean, I didn't know any of that,
How
right?
old were you?
I was 15.
Wow. So
Wow.
till 20 you had this
So 15,
relationship.
I was I was like
Yeah,
14,
about
15,
yeah, so it's
and yeah, I was almost 20. I
yeah.
was still in India then.
Uh-huh.
And he would like bang his head. He
Oh.
would actually hurt himself. He didn't never did hurt me, but I think mine was, for me it was, he made me mentally like responsible
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
emotionally and all that,
Yeah.
like, see, because you're doing this, I'm hurting myself.
And that is a big form of abuse, which I just really learned recently.
Mm-hmm.
That like if an abusive partner, the perpetrator is like inflicting pain on themselves
Mm-hmm.
as a response of you saying you're gonna leave or you're going to report it,
Mm-hmm.
that is another form of abuse. And it's like mental psychological abuse that like,
Yeah.
oh wow, if I step forward and I admit to this.
Yeah.
And so thank you for sharing that, Lynn. Like that.
I've never shared that because Layla's
Yeah.
shocked that
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
I went through. I guess it's buried
Yeah,
inside
and
you and it
uh-huh.
doesn't come out. But because you're talking about it, and I think by coming out and talking, it helps other teenagers, and so we don't come to that. They don't have to go through what I have gone through or things like that. I mean, I wasn't physically harmed. I can say
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but he would literally bang his head onto the wall, or he would slash his hands. He would say, oh, this is a knife, and if you ever leave me, that's it, I'm done, like like he is done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always felt responsible, and I was like, I can't, and I even remember my cousins, because we lived in a joint family, and my cousins were like, just leave him.
Yeah.
And I would be like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
So,
Because
because
you
I
had the
felt I'm
fear.
responsible for his
Yeah.
life. I
Yeah.
mean, I love him and we love each other, and it's just the love that is, he is, and I didn't even think like, oh, he's weak. That's him.
Yeah.
That's his issue.
Yeah.
But I just felt this huge burden on me. Like, and I couldn't, of course, I mean, I was hiding from my parents,
Yeah.
the love or
Yeah.
whatever. But my cousins knew, my friends knew, and I remember times where I would just want to go away and walk and cry, because I didn't realize the emotions I was going through. When you're that young, you don't realize anything, right? Except the love.
Yes.
So, and then when everything is okay, he would bring me flowers and we would go out for a movie. That's something you've heard all the time. You're like, oh, Lynn, oh my gosh.
No, but this is real life, right?
Yeah.
And I can tell you how many people that I've worked with, or like even friends who have had similar experiences and have come forward and said it now, and they say like, oh, I wish what I knew now back then, and I wouldn't
Yes,
have,
yeah.
fallen into this like cycle of abuse, which is like the cycle of abuse basically is like tensions build, they explode, and then the honeymoon phase starts again where the gift giving comes back, and it's
Yeah.
like the cycle, and it takes, Lynn, I don't know if you're part of the statistic, but it takes up to 9 times to leave a relationship
Yeah, so
for that
like
cycle.
we've broken up and patched up
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
And for me, I never realized, like, my parents are very broad-minded. They never ever restricted us to go out with the whole group of friends, mixed with boys. There was nothing like that. You can't talk to boys, right? But with him, it was like you can talk to a boy. And every guy or whoever would come, like, we would always be in groups, but I was not allowed to. And I always tried, and even if like he made plans and I couldn't go, because at that time my parents didn't know. So I had to kind of juggle my parents and him.
Yeah.
And he was like, let's go for a movie, or, like Valentine's Day, let's go
Yeah.
out. I'm like, no, I can't. And then he would start harming himself, hurting himself. And I'm like, oh my God.
I'm so sorry, Lynn.
Oh no, I mean,
I know, but
I somehow,
yeah.
not unknowingly for some reason, I don't know.
But I mean, this story is gonna help so many people of the listeners, whether they've gone through it or they have young, teenagers who may be going through it, or maybe don't know that they're going
Yes.
through it. And so maybe it'll encourage them to talk.
Yeah,
to them
and
today.
friends, I really want to tell people, like the young teenagers, like when friends tell you, you listen, like kind of, you don't have to do what they say, but their advice sometimes matters.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my friends would talk to me and tell me, like, he's not right for you. It's not, but we never use the word abuse. And I guess that time in India, we don't really talk about things, right? Like
Yes.
domestic violence and
Oh,
abuse
no.
and all.
Yeah.
Only over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
I think back home, I think abuse is like basically, I mean, the
It's part
end,
of life,
the
I think.
worst thing,
Yeah.
ever is like,
Yeah.
it's part of life, right? But people think what abuse is like basically if somebody has beat the other person
Yes.
black and blue, and
yeah.
like,
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
The
about
physical,
that.
yeah.
but nobody really talks back home about psychological or like
Abuse, verbal
possessiveness.
abuse, yes.
My
Because
gosh.
everyone's cussing each other. like, now, like at that time when you were a teenager, you would use cuss words, but
Yeah.
when you moved here, you're like, oh, that was not normal. So even now, when I meet some of my friends and then they're using the cuss words, you kind of seem to get into the flow. But like at first, you're like, oh my God, like what is happening, right? Because
Yeah.
it's so different. So
It's
yeah.
so different. And like, I mean, just culturally, I feel like people out on the road, I mean, you do something wrong and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is
Yeah.
verbal abuse.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah.
You-
So, what are some red flags that a teen might be experiencing during dating violence? Is it typically physical violence?
I'm so grateful,
Like,
Lynn,
yes,
that you
yeah.
shared this story, your story. But one of the biggest signs is possessiveness or jealousy. And at a young age, as we have just discussed, it's really difficult to see like that's a problem. You
Yeah.
know, you want to be as a young person who has all these hormones raging and so many things happening around them, people are in relationships every other day, you too want to have those feelings. So getting into a relationship and seeing that this person is jealous, like maybe it's flattering
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yes. Yeah.
But then that possessiveness turns into you can't go see, you talk to any other boy. You can't hang out with your friends. You have to hang out with me. Um, and then these days, something that we're noticing in a lot of, a red flag that we're noticing in a lot of teenage relationships is that there's a lot of invasion of privacy. So whether that means on social media or just in friend circles, like people will try to get information out of you, and your partner will get information out of you, or your friends, or go to your social media, hack into your social media to see if you're talking to anyone else. Um, Really unexpected like bouts of rage and anger is a huge red flag because I, I always think that we try to justify other people's actions,
Yes.
but I have to really learn, and this is something I'm continuously learning, is like believe people when they paint their own picture, right? Don't try to color it in yourself. Like what picture they're painting, look at it and believe it. So if somebody has bouts of anger, and maybe if it's like a once in a lifetime thing, of course, you can justify it. But if it's just a normal day and your boyfriend's angry, your girlfriend's angry, and they're yelling, and this is a cycle and a pattern, that anger is not normal. And you can't justify it. And I think as like young adults, people often justify it because maybe your parents were angry with you like that, like growing up, if like your mom yells at you, maybe that you compare the two as like, oh, my mom had a bad day, so she yelled at me because I didn't put the dishes up. So in the same way, like my girlfriend or my boyfriend is yelling at me because they had a bad day. Or,
You think that's normal.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then this is the last one I want to mention is like unusual moodiness. Once again, like when you're a teenager, your hormones are raging, like you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have good days. But unusual moodiness is like a red flag for like others to notice. Like if your teenager has just been really, is like their light has been dimming. Maybe that's a red flag to see if they're maybe perpetrating the abuse, or maybe they're, the survivor. And so to answer like the next part of your question, is it just usually physical violence? It's unfortunately not. The most common type of violence that young folks face is verbal abuse, psychological abuse, stalking, and then physical violence. So there are many different types of abuse that these young kids face, and it's really important to educate yourself on these red flags, whether you're a parent or you're the teenager themselves. Or just really like teachers, counselors, like there are mandatory trainings, of course, but these red flags, like every other day there's like new ones that come up too. So it's really important to keep yourself
Because now that I
updated.
think about it, I had this friend in college, and she had like they were dating, and the boyfriend would yell at her all the time, and like possessive on what to wear, what not to wear. And at that time it's just so cute, right? You're like, oh, like like I still like it's so vivid, the memory is so clear. I mean, there was no idea that that was abuse. And like she started spiral, like you could see the, not the depression, but trying like not to get out with people, I guess, because that's what he had told her, that you can't go meet anyone else, just me. And like and then she was very close friends with us, so we would always tell her that this is not normal and things like that. But it took her a while to then end the relationship.
Absolutely.
So
and isolation is one of the biggest tactics a lot of perpetrators use as well. And it doesn't have to be like physical isolation. That's what a lot of a huge misconception is, that like you're gonna be locked in the house. But
Yeah.
yes, that does happen.
But you lock yourself, right? Because
Exactly.
you have been brainwashed that way, just the way you were,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share, we just had a caller. She just called in to say it's a very good show, that she's tuned in. So we just want to thank our listeners. And, if you all have any questions for Tisha, do give us a call, because this is such an important topic and this is nothing new.
No.
I mean, I don't want to give my age, but if it's happened to me, it's happened to many young girls
Yes.
and boys, so it's,
So
it's
the cycle
something.
just continues. If we're still talking about it, and it's getting worse, I'm sure, with social media. 'Cause
Yeah, we didn't have
we
social
didn't
media.
have phones back then, so
And unfortunately, nowadays, like, there's even more of a pressure to be in a
Yes.
relationship because of, yes, we have these movements, right? Where it's like strong, independent young woman who doesn't need anyone. We were just talking about Michelle Obama and how
Yes.
she emphasizes that, like, focus on yourself, your education, and, like, a partner should be like this addition to your life rather than like the main focus to your
Yeah.
life. And
And she herself went through hardship in her relationship. It's not something like it was a smooth relationship. I mean, she did say that she went through marriage counseling and things like that.
Yeah.
So, it happens to many people. It's not your, just because she's Michelle Obama, she was the first lady, doesn't mean that she had a very smooth bringing up or
Yes.
her relationship,
Yeah.
because sometimes we always think, oh, nothing would happen to them. Yeah, so
Yes, yeah.
she's educated,
No,
and
but that's
it's
true,
always
because
that
nobody has
misconception.
even shared their story as a first lady, right? But
Correct.
grateful for her to share that, and then you can relate to her. Like, we both are reading the book,
Yes.
and we can actually relate to her as a mother, as a wife, as
As
a
a
sister,
friend.
friend,
Yes.
everything. So we're so grateful for her writing this book.
Yeah. And I'm able to talk about it now. I mean, I don't think I would have ever talked about it if it wasn't for for y'all, for Daya, because y'all bring it out, and y'all it's all life stories of other survivors and all that. And I'm thinking, like, yes, I mean, my story turned out, when you compare, it's like, okay, I did get out of it. I was in that, and I got out of it. Okay, I came
Yeah.
out okay. So what's the harm? Like, you have to share your stories, and I just feel better. I feel like maybe, I've helped, hopefully help a teenager or someone who might think back saying, oh, I'm going through that now. So that is abuse.
Yes.
absolutely. And that's the goal, right? Is with prevention and training is like also to just have these really raw conversations about topics that just are really difficult to talk about, and like to think about young teenagers going through like really horrible intimate partner violence. Like it's not the best thing to think about, but guess what, it's real life. And like if 1.5 million students a year have reported that they have been through some type of violence, then like I don't understand why we're not even talking about it more. So I'm very grateful to y'all for giving us the space to have these conversations.
Yeah, and with you, Tisha, going out in the community, training these young girls, boys, talking to them, having, preventative measures and all. It's great. I wish our time we had something.
I mean, and that's the thing is like we are living in Texas, and even though like went through schooling here, we don't talk about
No,
these things.
that's what I was just
kind
gonna
of
ask
just
you.
like
Are these programs in school? Because I haven't heard. My son's a middle schooler, so
no. So there are so many strict regulations.
Sorry, we have to.
Yes, we're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna return after our break. Welcome back to Chai Time on 99.5 FM. We're having this amazing conversation with Tishya Bedi about Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. So we were talking about what, as a teen, if you're experiencing dating violence, how can you get help?
The first thing I want to say is if you're facing violence and you're a teen, like it's very important to know it's never your fault. I always like to say this. It's never your fault because as teenagers, sometimes you might think that like, man, what if I was the reason why my boyfriend or girlfriend is being mean to me, is
Yeah.
being abusive.
Yes.
And so it's really important to know that like first step is like to tell yourself, to calm yourself down and tell yourself that like this none of this is your fault. There's nothing in life that you could have done to change the scenario besides not dating
Yeah.
the person, right? Which guess what already has happened.
Yes.
So it's best to just go in with this being very strong-minded and saying that this is not your fault. But but it's natural to also feel sad, anxious, angry,
Yeah.
really like really just hurt overall. And those are really real emotions and it's okay to feel them. And it's not like one day you're just going to wake up and you're going to think like, wow, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, it was, psychologically abusing me. So I'm fine now. I'm just
Yeah.
going to walk away. Maybe that might happen. My gosh.
Yeah.
Very lucky if that
Yes,
happens.
yes.
But you're going to feel these really real emotions. So to answer your question, if you're experiencing dating violence, tell someone. And I know we say that, and it's easy to say this, tell someone. It's really hard. It's really hard to come out and tell your story and be so vulnerable with someone else and trust them with your story.
Yes.
If you have the ability, tell your parents because that they're going to be there. But, oftentimes maybe you can't even tell your parents. So this is when you seek out an adult, an authority figure in your life, whether that be a
Trusted
teacher,
adult,
counselor.
Yeah.
I know a lot of schools now have like security off, like police officers at the school itself. You can go to them.
Yeah.
One thing is, a lot of these people are mandated reporters, so once you do report any form of abuse, they do have to report it to whomever they have to report it to. So if you want your story to be anonymous still, maybe an aunt that you really trust, your older sibling who might be old enough to give you some good advice, and help you through. But the next thing you can also do is, and we really encourage this, is like keeping record of your own like abuse. Like if you do have screenshots of your partner being really, really mean to you on text message or voicemail, record it, take a screenshot, print them out. You don't have to give them to anyone. Write down the date and the time that it happened, as specific as you can get, the location. Because when you do decide to report that abuse, then all these things will be so handy for you. Like having the exact details is very important.
Okay.
And then the last thing, once again, is leaving the relationship because really, I mean, there is that cycle that, sometimes you think it might have ended, but then that honeymoon phase starts where you get flowers, you get chocolates, you go to watch movies, you go out and hang out with friends and everything might seem normal.
Yeah.
But guess what? Tensions will build again and there will be another explosion. So it's really important to leave the relationship and leave it for good.
Yeah.
But I know that's really easy to say because
like you said, it takes about 9 times, right, for the cycle.
Up to 9 times, yeah. And that's if I think that statistics is for like adults.
Okay.
And so I don't think they have one for teenagers yet. But yeah, I think telling someone, holding on to the details and taking record of all details and leaving is like the safest thing. And like one of the great things that we do at Daya is we help with safety planning. And though we don't have like specific teenage services yet, what you can do is go to our website and we do have safety plans out that if you, for example, are like, for some reason staying with the, boyfriend, girlfriend, or you just feel unsafe. Like if you feel like you, Lynn, like where you couldn't leave because you thought that this person was going to harm themselves. Creating the safety plan for when you are ready to leave is so important too because it keeps not only you safe, the people around you safe. And like it goes into detail about like, what to do, what not to do. And so we have that available as well.
That's good, right? The more resources sources from our legit source, I think, is important because there's a lot of information out there, but then it has to come from the right source.
Absolutely.
So, what risks should parents and teens be aware of that us adults may not be aware of?
I think we mentioned them, all these like the unusual moodiness and bouts of anger.
Yeah.
But one thing that I really want to touch base on is young kids are so impressionable and they will follow whatever is modeled for them.
Yes.
So if you and your partner are acting in a certain way, but you're telling your kids to not act that way,
Yeah.
that's kind of unfair because people will follow what they see.
Yeah.
And that's a huge risk that we don't talk about. Is like,
Yeah.
are you showing your children what a healthy relationship looks like?
Yeah.
Are you taking your kids to like, an uncle's house who might be,
Yeah.
questionable,
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you modeling the behavior that you one day want your kids to be
Yeah.
like?
Yes.
And so that's a huge risk that we don't
Never talk about
foresee.
it. Yeah.
And we at Daya right now, what we're doing is like, we get this question a lot, is like, how do we even talk to our kids
Yeah.
about these things? And so, we have a healthy relationships toolkit for teenagers. But right now, what we're doing is working on one for parents.
Yes.
Because as a parent, even though you might, like, maybe you've had bouts of, like, experiences where you haven't acted in the most proper way around your kids, but, like, maybe this toolkit will be able to help a lot of parents, like, really realize that their actions do matter.
Yeah.
And, like, sometimes it's not even the parents' fault. Sometimes the parents are in an abusive relationship and like
Yeah.
that's being modeled to the kids.
Right.
So they think that what they're going through is absolutely normal.
Normal. Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Yeah, because that's the cycle we spoke about, right? Like if you see it at home happening, if they are yelling at each other, and then your whoever you're dating is yelling, you're like, okay, I mean that's fine.
Yeah.
I see this at home, so it's okay.
absolutely.
Right.
Like they love me because my mom loves me, but she yells. So,
Yes. Yeah.
my boyfriend must love
Yeah.
me.
Exactly. So what about the rules against dating in South Asian community? Is this helping keep teens safe?
Oh my gosh. See, I'm gonna speak on it from like the young person / like somebody who works in this field view. But I'm not a parent,
Yes.
and so I don't know how it feels to have a child and
Yeah.
to love and want to protect them so much. So yeah, keep that in mind,
Yeah.
listeners. Like I'm not a parent, so the rules against dating in the South Asian diaspora, they're so funny because I mean we always joke about this as like, okay, you're in school, don't date, you're in college, like don't date, but then as soon as you graduate you get a job, it's like, where are my grandchildren?
Yes, absolutely.
And it's like, how do you know as you're going through this and navigating all of your life without having dated,
Yeah.
how do you know like what a healthy relationship should look like, And so is not dating keeping kids safe? Absolutely not, because think about it this way, like your whole life, your parents are the ones that like have raised you, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones that you sort of look up to, whether they've had a healthy relationship or not. But they're the ones that you trust the most. And like parents will also say like, I love you the most. I want you to trust,
Yeah.
us the most.
Yes.
But then when you put the strict rule of like, you're not going to date anyone. First of all, I was a rebel. I did exactly what my parents told me not to do. So that's going to happen.
Yes.
They're going to date. And guess what? How does a kid who's not even supposed to be dating tell you that, hey, mom and dad, I'm being abused by my partner?
Yes.
Yes.
Because they're not supposed to be doing it, and so you're not there for your child then.
Yeah. You haven't created that safe space for them.
To come talk.
And guess what? I mean, maybe these are the values of people living in India, which totally is not true. My younger cousins, they are way far more advanced than I was,
Yes.
like even growing up here. But they like that might be the way that things go back home, but here like they're gonna be exposed to all different cultures and all different values. So as scary as it might seem for you as parents to allow your kids to like explore the idea of dating, um, it's really at the end of the day keeping them healthy. Like you're gonna be able to have a conversation with them about like how to keep yourself safe if you are gonna plan on, being sexually active. Because what do you want? Like, would you rather have your child be safe while doing something, or be unsafe while doing something and you just not knowing? So I really encourage like everyone to take a deep breath and like think about what values might have been passed on from like your own parents to you. But how can you break that generational curse of like not passing on these values that really hold maybe no value to your kids onto them, and
so just to that, I have a boy and he's like just turned 12, and I'm one of those. I'm those Indian moms that no, you're not dating, and luckily because he was just talking about a girl he likes and he's gonna ask, and I'm like, Sam, you deal with it. But my reason is like I don't want him to go through a heartbreak so early, right? Like I don't want him, because I know he's such a softie and I don't want him to go through that pain. So I guess I'm trying to protect it, but then again, he is going to go through it at some point. So I give kudos to my husband, because he is very broad. But again, I guess that's how he was raised as well. Like he's very open-minded in that sense and can easily converse about it. Compared to me, I'm like, Sam, deal with it. And that's but it's a learning experience for me to have that relationship with my boy, right? So
and that's why I said, I was like, I don't know what it feels like to have this thing. I don't want to call a kid a thing, but like this thing that like you gave birth to, and like that connection. So I understand wanting to protect your kids, but like,
how did you deal with it? You were okay with it?
Oh, like with Aaron dating? Yeah, I actually the first thing I said to him, like, you always have to respect her. It has to be both ways. You can, you try to kind of like have an open communication with her. That time when things were getting kind of serious, because I still remember me telling him that she will always be my daughter first. Like she will be my daughter. So if anything is wrong, I'll protect her. So I gave him that kind of advice, like,
and he's
with
engaged
him.
now. So
Yeah, he's engaged.
Oh my gosh,
I'm gonna be a sasu.
She's gonna be the luckiest person to have you as like a
I
mother.
don't know.
She's still dealing with it.
He's still trying to settle in my brain.
Oh.
I wanted to ask you, Tisha, as like for teenagers with their friends, like if a friend is seeing their friend going through it, so as a friend, what advice or tip can you give? Who is because you have talked, you all have given us advice as adults, right?
Yes.
But as when teenagers and their friends and they see their friends going through, so what can they do?
No, that's a wonderful question, and it's along the same lines of like telling somebody that you trust. Like if my friend is going through something and I'm a teenager, I would go to my parents and say, hey, like, listen, I think Sarah is, not in a healthy relationship. Like, please don't tell anyone right now, but I want your advice to what should I do for my friend Sarah. The next thing you can do is tell your friend that you believe them and that you're there for them no matter what decision they make. Because this is not, once again, your story. This is the survivor's story. So they will tell you as much as they want to. They will do things when they want to. But of course, if you see it and if you see it's right and you think it's like very, very unsafe, telling somebody that you trust, maybe that be the school counselor or teacher that you both have, and letting an adult sort of take the lead, because
Yeah.
as a young teenager, it's also very difficult to see your friend going through that. So it is really good to have support. But one thing I will emphasize is always letting your friend know that you're there for them and that you believe them. Because sometimes at that age, and even as adults, we sometimes do have these implicit biases that, like, oh, maybe they didn't really go through that. Maybe they're just exaggerating.
Yes,
And
for
it happens
sure.
a lot in, like, since I've worked with teenagers, a lot of people think that, these are just rumors or someone's exaggerating. And so, but believing them
Yeah.
as a survivor, the best thing you can ever hear is that somebody believes you and that they're there for you.
Yeah, and as teenagers also, it's that secret, right? You have to keep it as a secret.
Secret, yes.
You feel like you don't want to snitch on your
Yeah.
friend. But then I guess as parents we need to even tell our kids that's not called snitching. That's you're trying to help that
Yes,
friend of
and keep
yours.
it
Because
safe.
sometimes we hear those stories
Yes.
where, kids will come and tell their parents, so and so is going through this, or you know what, but they say then at the same time they will say I'm not getting in, I don't want to
Yeah.
say anything, I'm not getting
Right.
in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Because they
because
don't
it's
want to
that,
break that trust with their
yes,
friend.
yeah,
Yes.
it's hard. So
Yeah, that fine. It's a fine line, right?
But if like, teenagers are listening in, just I want to really, you know, bring awareness to the fact that a lot of mental health issues also start with abusive relationships. And oftentimes people do feel very depressed. They feel, also suicidal when
yes,
they're, facing such type of intimate partner violence. So you won't be snitching on your friend if you tell somebody that you trust and somebody who can take the lead. You're just helping them. And sooner or later, your friend will realize and be thankful for that. In the moment, they might not be the
Yeah.
yes,
happiest,
Yes. But
but
yes,
later.
later on in life,
Yes.
they might look back and say, hey, had it not been my friend telling our teacher, maybe I would not be alive today. You know?
Yeah. True. Um. So, what is a good age to start talking about dating violence?
Oh my gosh, if I could start talking to infants, I would. That is when their brains are developing the most. That is when exactly, like, I think as soon as children are able to understand you,
Yeah.
so whether that be like toddlers, and I'm not saying talk to your
Yeah.
toddler about sex,
Yeah.
right, or
Yeah.
healthy relationships, but I'm saying how there's this song that I've been seeing on TikTok that parents are teaching to their young kids is like my no-no zone, like
Yeah.
my boundary song.
Yeah.
That, hey mom, right now I don't want to be hugged.
Yeah.
It's nothing against you. It's just my own boundary right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Teaching them that,
Yeah.
don't you think that, like, then if a weird family member or family
Yeah.
friend approaches them, that they won't say something
Yeah.
similar?
Yeah.
And then when they start dating someone and like something's happening that they see that something's wrong, like that they
Yeah.
will then
Once.
speak up.
Yeah.
And then in a marriage, like
Yeah.
as young as you can start is the best, because once again we believe in like prevention is better than intervention.
Yes.
Um, and it works. A lot of studies have been done that when you do speak to younger kids about boundaries, that they are less likely to fall victim to a lot of like unwanted touching. Like they will speak up,
Yeah.
they will report it properly.
Yeah.
And as a parent, you will also have that satisfaction of knowing that my kid knows
Yeah.
how to
He
speak
can.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He or she can take care of himself.
Exactly. And so start as young as you can, and I'll let y'all know when Daya's healthy relationship toolkit for
Yes.
parents
Yes.
is
Yes.
out,
Yeah.
because I think
You
that
can-
toolkit, you can apply it to any age group too.
Right. So many teens are hesitant to talk to their parents about dating. How can we break that barrier?
Man, it's so scary. I think about myself in this situation. Like, it's nerve-wracking to, like, go from, not being allowed to date to then having to tell your parents, or, like, wanting to tell them. But I think we break the barrier by us adults taking responsibility for, like, how we approach this conversation and these
Yeah.
topics. Because we can't put it all on teenagers, right? They're
Right.
already like going through so
So
much
yeah.
that it's our responsibility as adults to create that safe space. So
Exactly.
once again, even if you don't like the idea of your young teen dating
Yeah.
someone, it's really important that like you recognize that you do live in a society where it is normal to do
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
And you do need to recognize that whether you want it or not,
It's
it will
gonna
happen.
Yes.
Or maybe it won't.
Yeah.
You never know.
No, yeah.
I have no, side note, I've noticed like my friends who were always allowed to date never had a boyfriend till
Yeah.
like college.
Yeah.
But then my friends who like weren't allowed to date
Date.
always had like secret girlfriend boyfriends like
Yeah.
throughout the years.
Yeah.
So sometimes like opening up that space like takes away that like curiosity.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Because as kids, you're so curious about everything. And so if you open up that safe
Yeah.
space and say, okay, this is what it is. Like, this is what a healthy relationship looks like. This is how to keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
And of course, it's age appropriate
Yeah.
because you're not going to tell your 8-year-old, 9-year-old
Yeah.
to have safe sex.
Yeah.
But like your
Yeah.
teenagers, you
Right.
know? So opening up a space that's age appropriate for like
Yeah.
each age group and like continuing that conversation. And I think something that like is funny is like when you keep having these conversations, it like the same things can just keep applying. So you don't have to like think of something new that
Yeah.
by the age that your child is ready to
Yeah.
go off to college, you don't have to give them
No.
the talk,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
or tell them how to be safe,
Yeah.
you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so it's really important to just, I mean, for us adults, once again, just take that responsibility.
Yes. Yes. I mean, yeah, I'm learning.
You're getting into
Yeah.
that, right?
No, I'm like, I need that guide first. So, for sure. Is Daya doing any events for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month?
Yeah, we actually have a webinar coming up soon with a subject matter expert, Reshmi
Okay.
Patel. She has worked with Daya prior to me joining, but
Yeah.
I have heard nothing but amazing things about her.
Okay.
And she's volunteered and worked with really amazing and impressive organizations. So she'll be hosting that webinar, and I should really know this exactly what date. I believe it's February 23rd,
Okay.
but let me just make sure.
Sure.
But if you go to our social media, all of the information should be on there.
Yeah, and you can share it with us too, because we can share it. with
Absolutely.
them.
So it's Friday, February 24th from 12 to 1 p.m. Central.
Okay.
It's on Zoom. So like while you're having your lunch, like tune in, you know, just listen. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe you'll learn something new, or maybe you'll just hear something that you maybe forgot about. You can register through our social media. There should be everything should be linked on there. And if you have any trouble accessing, please feel free to message us.
Okay.
But that's our big event that's happening.
Okay, that's awesome. And how does Daya engage with teens in your work?
Yeah, and so this is what is exciting that's coming with, you know, my new position is that I really get to work with children, not children, but like teenagers.
Yes.
And really like dive deep into prevention with them. And so we released our Healthy Relationships Toolkit last year. And although we've been previewing it a lot to people,
Yeah.
but this year really, I mean, we have amazing workshops coming up with like high school girls that will be diving deep into that toolkit and really seeing how it can benefit everyone. And the toolkit is available online.
Okay.
Should be up on the website. Once again, really bad. Should be checking the website more. But really just like educating, also opening up our like platform for, you know, kids to come on
Yeah.
and do like videos for us, like reels. I know a lot of like young girls will be
Yeah.
now making reels for
Yeah.
like certain months of the year that we celebrate, or volunteering with us, although you have to be 18 to
Yes.
volunteer with our clients. But, you know, coming out to our clothing drive, seeing how like the community, how them giving back to our clients,
Yes.
and how great that feels, and like really learning about the mission. So we always hope that the younger ones will come out to events like that and help, you know, support. But if you are interested and you're a teenager and you have a group of friends or like a school club that you want to invite Daya out to maybe have this conversation, please reach out to us. You can contact us from the website, and like it could start with you. You
Yeah.
could be the agent of change within your friend group or your school club. Um, and that's what I want to end off with is I hope everyone learned at
Yes.
least something new today.
It was an amazing conversation, and it was there was so much information, and I really appreciate you taking the time and being here.
Of course.
And it was just fun, at the same.
Yeah,
It was not an
exactly.
easy topic, but
Right.
Yeah. We always talk about adults
Yeah.
forgetting the teens.
Yeah.
They're,
Or the
they're in
kids,
such
right?
a
So,
sensitive
yeah.
age
Yes.
where so much is happening for them. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's
oftentimes
important.
they're victimized. They're ridiculed, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
is that, oh, they're just acting this
Acting
way.
up, yes.
But like maybe taking the
It's that
time to
age.
really,
Yeah.
really learn
Understand.
about these
Yes.
things and like being that person, that rock for your kids.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you, listeners. We had a great show, and we will see you next time, same place, same time. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tisha.